Katie Stabler, and I'm very pleased that we have her with us here today. You might know Katie as the host of the UK Customer Experience Awards, and she has also co-authored the Amazon bestseller Customer Experience 2. And some of you also might not know, also a quarterfinalist in MasterChef, which was new news to me yesterday. So if you have any customer experience questions or cookery questions, make sure you drop them in the chat throughout. Talk will last for about 20 minutes, and then we'll have Q&A at the end, but feel free to drop questions in the chat as we go, and we can maybe pick them up along the way. But yeah, without further ado, I'll leave you in Katie's capable hands.
Thank you so much. Let's do the wonderful screen sharing moment. Let's make sure everyone can see everything. Sharing screen now. Hopefully that is all good. I think it's coming up slowly. While it's coming up, a little bit about myself. So as Scott said, yeah, thank you. Great, you can see it. So I'm Katie. I am the founder and principal consultant at Cultivate Customer Experience by Design. And thank you so much for joining us today on this chat around culture and particularly customer-centric cultures. Now, I've been dedicated to the world of customer experience for about a decade, just over, in fact. And Cultivate has been running for 4 years, and I'm industry agnostic. So Cultivate has worked with all kinds of industries, including telecoms, private education, housing associations. I believe we've got a few people from housing associations here today, ICT, financial sector, not-for-profit. So a bit of everything. As Scott said, host of the Customer Experience Awards down in London, which was a personal career highlight of mine. I'll be there again this year if anybody's going to be joining in Wembley. I'm an accredited customer experience professional, CCXP, through the Customer Experience Professional Association. And yes, a MasterChef quarterfinalist. So if anybody wants to talk customer experience or cookery, please feel free to chat after this. So without further ado, let's get on to culture. So this is going to focus on why we want it, why customer-centric culture is that holy grail that we're all trying to achieve, the challenges that we face in trying to achieve it, and then most importantly, how we can go about actually nurturing it. And at the end, I'll be introducing the concept of Customer Experience TV, which is a tool that is here to support that culture change ambition. So let's just start by aligning as a group to make sure that we've all got a similar understanding of what we mean when we say a customer-centric culture. So a customer-centric culture is when we can consider ourselves well on our way to being customer-focused, and we can sincerely say that we put customers at the heart of everything we do. Now, customer centricity involves having beliefs, values, and strategies that focus on creating positive experience for the customer throughout their entire journey. Now, putting customers at the heart of the business absolutely is not at the cost of employee experience. So I advocate really strongly that the two are interlinked and that you cannot have a good customer experience without a good employee experience too. And in order to nurture that customer-centric culture, we need to recognize that those two go hand in hand. So as such, a customer-centric culture includes features such as a strong customer focus. Obviously, we're not only products and services are designed, we're not just thinking about customer wants and needs and expectations there, but also around policies and procedures too, the internal ways that we work. Everything needs to be designed with customers at the heart. Where understanding customer and understanding customer experience is an absolute priority, and where customer is always a part of the conversation. And that's often where we fall foul when we're talking about customer-centric culture, is that we very easily slip into talking about customers as numbers or statistics, as opposed to the people that we actually serve. And as I mentioned, you can't have a customer-centric culture without employee experience, which involves employee empowerment. Why? Well, it's twofold. So firstly, employees need to be empowered to be able to do the right thing for the right customer in that moment, to ensure that they continually deliver the best customer experience possible. And to do that, their hands shouldn't be tied by bureaucracy or lengthy or unnecessary chains of decision making. Secondly, employees need to feel empowered and trusted for their own sense of satisfaction and happiness in the workplace. A happier employee, surprise, surprise, means more productive, more efficient employees, which in turn has a positive knock-on effect on the customer experience, something I like to call the customer experience employee experience loop. And there is endless amounts of statistics which show that employee experience correlates to great customer experience. And in fact, all you have to do is look at the things like the Forbes top 100 places to work or Glassdoor top 100 places to work. And it is no surprise to see that the people who make the top of the list, or the companies that make the top of the list, also excel in customer experience. Now, of course, I couldn't talk about culture without the inclusion of data-driven decision-making. I've already stated how customer focus is crucial, and customer focus should yield a really robust provision of insight. But many companies still don't use customer insight as well as they might intend. We tend to be fantastic at collecting it, not so great at using it. But we must use it, and we must make customer data-driven decisions if we are to be customer-centric. The pitfalls of ineffectively using data to make decisions are many, but often, and most significantly, the pitfall is just wasted resource. Too often we're wasting people time and money by inefficient prioritization. And an example of that, we might get all excited that our next 4-week sprint is going to reduce our call wait time from 3 minutes to 1 minute. But in reality, our customers care not about those 2 minutes. However, they do dislike having to spend 3 minutes navigating a chatbot before having the option to speak to an advisor. That's where prioritization comes in, and that's where customer data-driven decisions are important. There is always a job to be done, and customer data can help us to determine what is the most effective use of our time and resource. Then open communication. And this is hugely important as a feature of customer-centric cultures. And no matter what company I support, good internal and customer communication is always a challenge. But you can't empower employees without great transparent communication. And just to be clear, transparency doesn't mean sharing everything, but it does mean sharing everything that will help your people to be the best that they can be. And equally, transparency is applicable with customers too. And perhaps even more importantly, more important than transparency is having timely and proactive communication. Then we have continuous improvement, and I'm sure none of you are strangers to continuous improvement, but what is important to note here is I'm not just talking about fixes. Our world of operation, and often customer experience departments in particular, we see experience improvement as fixing something when it's broken. And of course, this is a part of it, but if we're only fixing things that are broken, we're staying the same. And if we stay the same, we actually get worse because our customers and our landscapes change around us, and so must we. So when I'm talking about continuous improvement, I am not talking about just fixing things. I'm talking about real improvement. I'm talking about using customer focus, using employee empowerment, and all of that insight to innovate different ways of doing things, better ways of doing things. And finally, doing all of this is essential across cross-department collaboration. Real culture change comes when individuals are not doing this alone, departments aren't working in their own pocket, but instead the team is seen as one. The customer journey is owned by everyone, and the impact of every action on the customer experience is known and understood. And they're the core features of customer-centric culture. So building and maintaining a customer-centric culture pretty clearly isn't quick and it isn't particularly easy. So why bother? Why are we here talking about this today? Well, if you read the annual reports that are a large part of what comes out every year, big research companies tend to fire out these at the beginning of the year. If you read them, you'll know that the landscape of customer experience has been a little bleak for some time. In fact, the American Customer Satisfaction Index had seen a 20-year decline in CSAT, but thankfully, finally, last year, so 2023, did see an improvement. However, the UK aren't so lucky, and we still saw a decline of 2.4 points. Now, it isn't just customer satisfaction index that paints this picture. You look at all other research like Qualtrics, it's the same story. And of course, there is a multitude of factors that are behind these measures. But one standout finding for me is that customers want to trust a company. So when you look at the research, it all says the same thing. Customers want to trust. They want to trust that you will be there if they need support, that their customer service will be available and they'll be able to speak to the right person. And at the moment, the research is saying that customers don't feel that trust. Now, I feel that is so downheartening because when I think about customer experience, trust should be 101 basic. It shouldn't be something I feel like even factors into it, but it is. And we're just not doing good enough. So we know that poor customer experience leads to low customer acquisition and retention and increased costs, and there's so much more to that. Whereas a great customer experience, quite the opposite. It leads to customers trusting you more, 85% of customers trusting you more. It leads to customers recommending you, 75% more likely to recommend you if you offer a good customer experience. And it leads to an increased lifetime wallet value. We know all of this. It makes sense. Again, the research shows that good customer experience strategies lead to better business. But to achieve all of that, a great customer experience needs to be deliberate, robust, consistent, and sustainable. And none of us set out to deliver a bad customer experience, but all too often, parts of our experience are intentionally designed or unintentionally managed as they should be. And you cannot deliver or achieve a deliberate, robust, consistent, or sustainable customer experience if it isn't part of your culture. And that's why it's worth the effort. That's why we are striving for customer centricity, because this needs to take place. And if it does, we're not just talking about a nice to have. Customer-centric cultures make better business. The statistics show it. The statistics show that increased revenue and market share happens. According to Forbes, customer-centric companies can grow their revenue 4 to 8 times percent faster than their competitors. And then there's improved profitability. So a study of over, 1,300 organizations found that 84% of those focused on improving customer experience increased their revenue and 79% increased cost savings. And we also see a 25% in increased loyalty. All of the statistics show that despite the effort, despite the difficulty, customer-centric cultures are worth it. So, what are the biggest challenges that we most commonly face in actually getting that holy grail of a customer-centric culture? Often, it's a lack of understanding. So, going back to what needs to be present to achieve a customer-centric culture, we don't often focus enough on the customer experience. We don't have a strong enough grasp of what their wants and needs and expectations are. And this is quite often because we have an inside-out view. We often perceive the customer experience as such, and we don't necessarily understand the reality of our customer experience. And it's often because we're not looking at it through the right lens. Another challenge is limited employee empowerment. So I'm going to stick with this for a moment because this particular challenge, right, I said at the beginning, is so crucial to customer experience. EX impacts CX. Now, I'm wondering if anybody in the room is aware of James Timpson. So he runs Timpson's on the high street, normally known for key cutting and shoe repairs. And he is pretty renowned for his quite unique leadership style. And I had the pleasure of listening to him speak and actually meeting him at TED Manchester this year. Now, James's leadership style is upside down management, where colleagues have total authority to do whatever they need to amaze their customers. And he has just 2 rules. Look the part, so you have to look like a Timpson's franchise, and put money in the till, i.e. make a profit. Now, he treats his employees exceptionally well. And just some of his upside down management features include enabling colleagues to give away free products and services. Now, before I knew this, I'd actually been given a free shoe repair, and I came out of there thinking, oh, how nice was that guy? I'll get him a coffee next time I go in and take my shoes. Little did I know it was part of their procedures. Then we have a weekly bonus scheme, which is based on sales performance. So nothing particularly unusual, but obviously that is smart because we're talking about giving away a certain percentage of freebies, but sales staff are still based on their performance. Now, something again that isn't particularly unique is that they get a birthday day off paid. But where Timpsons step it up a level is when it's their children's first day of school, they get that paid. No matter how many children you've got, first day of child school, paid day off. Getting married, a week off, a week, paid annual leave. They also have 19 completely free to use holiday homes in the UK for all of the staff. The staff just have to book them in. And get this, £1 million per year is spent on making their employees' dreams come true. £1 million a year. And this can be absolutely anything. The employee has just got to make a submission and tell them what they want the money for. And what James said are the most common things are typically garden renovations, trips to Disneyland, and apparently an awful lot of new teeth. And it isn't just that, but they also provide comprehensive training. So the staff are good at what they do. They recognise and thank their team just by simple things like handwritten thank you letters. And James personally visits his store across the UK just to drop in, say hi and thank you. And instead of a C-suite, they actually have a cut the crap community. And this all pays off. His employee satisfaction rates are through the roof. His retention rates are through the roof. And guess what? His customer experience metrics are pretty damn healthy too. And, you know, we look at this and we think, wow, that is something else. But why should this be so unusual? Why should this not be the norm? It works, it makes sense, it pays dividends. So why is this so rare? I'll let you think on that for a moment, but if upside down leadership has sparked your interest, then here are James's top 5 tips at how to do it. First of all, treat your employees as an equal and spoil them with things when you can. Next up, look after your employees when they have a problem. Number 3, you just need someone who listens. Be kind. Number 2, a family is a business where everybody is treated as part of the family. And lastly, I'll let you read that one for yourself, but I believe the most commercially successful way to run an organization is to not be So unique, but it works. So yeah, why is it so unique? But leaving James and coming back to the list, another big challenge that prevents customer-centric culture is siloed information and process. And I'm sure a lot of you are going to be nodding your heads here because this is so common. It is all connected. And as I said before, you have to work cross-departmentally. You have to have collaboration. The customer sees you as one. So to be successful, you have to act as one. And just like I said before, you know, none of us set out to deliver a subpar customer experience. None of us aim to work in silos. But the truth is, we are just often so busy, and it's normally hard enough to reach a consensus within our small teams. It typically takes more time than we feel we have to spare. So unless it's absolutely necessary or unless it's designed into your process, we don't collaborate nearly enough. And lastly, the final challenge is that sometimes some of us are just resistant to change. We might not like it, we might not understand it, and often, most commonly, we just might not see a need for it. Which just brings me on to a little story that my old psychology professor shared. And it goes that there's a lady cooking with her little girl in the kitchen, and they're cooking a Sunday roast, and the mum cuts up the roast, pops it into 2 roasting trays and pops it in the oven. And the little girl says, oh, Mum, why have you cut that up? And the mum says, well, just the way my mum always did it. So the next Sunday when they're at Grandma's house, they ask Grandma why she cut the roast in half. And do you know why Grandma cut the roast in half? Because Grandma's oven wasn't big enough to put the roast in as one. The moral of the story is we didn't ask questions. we just do things the way it's done. We should always be seeking how we can do things better. And that is one of the biggest reasons that we don't change. We're just not open to the thought that maybe we can and we need to. So let's move on to going past the challenges, going past the need. How can we mitigate these challenges and actually nurture a customer-centric culture? No surprise, but obsess over customer insight, obsess over it. Empower employees and align everyone, collaborate as much as possible, and communicate as openly as possible. Now, when I say obsess over customer insight, I don't just mean voice of the customer. I mean everything. You should be using voice of the customer, yes, but you should be using voice of the employee, voice of the process. Use your own KPIs and customer usage data like website usage, retail visits, complaints, repairs, social media, everything that you can think of that possibly tells you anything about your customer. You need to be obsessing about it. And by doing that, and using all of this data, you can build accurate retrospective customer journey maps, which highlight exactly where your friction points are. You can also use these to overlay against your future customer journey maps, which is a really great way of showing where the gaps are between your current experience delivery and your ambition of customer experience delivery. And this is so insightful. This kind of process should also be highly collaborative, which means that once again, we're talking about empowerment. You can empower your people to have a voice on customer experience at all levels, frontline to C-suite. Not only that, but this kind of initiative, it also encourages a really strong cross-departmental collaboration. So a customer's end-to-end journey, as you'll know, will touch on all aspects of the business: marketing, sales, delivery, customer service, IT, etc. The list goes on. Viewing this journey holistically like this brings astutely everyone together and shows the impact that we all have on everybody's part of the customer experience. We're not just working in isolation. We're not just looking at our department. We're not just looking at the impact we have. We're seeing how it all impacts across the business. Now, I actually ran a customer journey program for Europe's second largest credit management company, which is also known as a debt collection company. Debt collection and customer experience don't necessarily go hand in hand, but I would argue if any industry needs customer experience, it is debt collection. And when we started this initiative, we struggled to get stakeholders in the room. It was hard to get them to engage. Everybody was busy. Nobody cared about this fluffy stuff. When I left, we couldn't get a room big enough. All departments wanted to be represented. All departments wanted a review and a deep dive on their particular area. And people left with actions and came back with updates. It was a great way to make all stakeholders feel like they had real skin in the game and were part of the CX improvements. Another way to develop customer-centric culture, and something that also really strongly empowers and aligns teams, is to have a strong vision and a very robust customer experience strategy that enables you to achieve that vision. And I advocate really strongly that your CX strategy shouldn't be built by leadership alone. It should be something that engages the wider business. If they build it with you, they will care more, they will feel ownership. And to continually strengthen and create that alignment and empowerment, I'd encourage you to have a rolling program of customer experience workshops and training. Not just the one tick box, we've done that for the year. A rolling program. We're talking about culture change. This consistently needs to be part of the agenda and it consistently needs to be visible. And these training and workshops, they should be multidisciplined. So again, I'm talking cross collaboration. I'm working with an organization at the moment who is, like many, going through a significant digital transformation, and they want their customers to be at the heart of what they're doing. And they need their workforce to understand the change, embrace the change, and be there to deliver the best customer experience possible. So as such, we're delivering a customer experience program of workshops and facilitation to the entire workforce. And all of the groups are purposefully multidisciplined, made up of absolutely everyone from the front line to the C-suite. And this kind of approach is important because it shows everybody how important they are, and it shows everybody how important customer experience is. It makes them feel valued, it makes them feel trusted by sharing the same message to all, and it keeps that customer experience strategy visible and alive, not just words on a page in a drawer that nobody looks back to. And then finally, as I alluded to at the beginning, the final initiative I wanted to share, this is also something which nurtures incredible alignment and incredibly open communication, is CXTV. So the mission to design, to deliver, to manage a great experience never ends. We know this. But unless it's your core priority and day in and day out, you are explicitly focused on CX, then actually the customer isn't always on your mind. Like I said, sometimes customers fall into our peripheral and just become a number. Not purposefully so, but it happens. But to be customer centric, they absolutely must be on our mind. We must always be reminded why we do what we do, why we're amending that policy, why we're going through those rounds of user testing, why we're looking at certain skills when we're hiring new employees, why we are sat in this session today. Ultimately, it's all for the end goal of providing such a good customer experience that it keeps us in business. And so, Customer Experience TV was born to act as that reminder, to nurture that pivot towards customer centricity. And Customer Experience TV consists of short, usually kind of sub 10-minute videos full of customer experience content, from how-tos to customer experience good practice, to the more kind of theoretical content around the why and the psychology of customer experience. And it's aimed at all levels of the business, bespoke to your business needs. So, for example, a client who subscribes to CXTV wanted their May episode to focus on handling customer objections to a new app. They have a pending app launch, and they understand that a particular demographic of their customers will be a little bit reluctant to make the shift to the app. And so they wanted this episode to focus on supporting their frontline to handle customer objections in a way that can actually improve the customer experience. Another client is focused on improving the experience of their enterprise customers. And so the next 3 months of the episodes are explicitly focused on the challenges they face. Now, CXTV, of course, is not a replacement for the usual approach to support in these kind of circumstances. It's just added value. Initiatives like this, like CXTV, like that training, like that constant communication, it is a reminder, nudge theory, if you will, that customer experience is a business priority for you, and it's a way of keeping the entire business aligned, in the loop and engaged. So, as a reminder, obsess over customer insight, empower employees where you can, and work to align everybody. Collaborate as much as possible. There is never too much collaboration, and openly communicate if you're going to nurture a strong customer-centric culture. Thank you. And if you have any questions, please let's take the time to chat.
Cool, thank you. I really wanted to use this sound effect, and hopefully it's working, a little cheer in the background. But yeah, thank you very much, Katie. That was amazing. I love this CXTV initiative, and this is kind of how I ran into you in the first place. I think it's just such a great initiative to get to empower employees in the front line by providing them the information they need to do their best with like customers or issues that are happening at whatever time it is. But there's a couple of questions, or one question through at least. If you could throw any questions you have in the chat that you'd like Katie to answer, that'd be great. I'll just give you a few minutes to do that. But yeah, Kelton's got one here. How do you recommend getting through to stubborn departments who don't see their part in a CX culture?
Oh, wow. Do you know, I wish that someone had asked me that question when I first started my CX career, because that probably would have been the number one thing I focused on. Customer experience is everybody's responsibility, right? But much to your question, Kelton, people don't feel like it. And this is particularly apparent in back end parts of the business, which don't necessarily feel like they're customer facing. And, quite honestly, relationships are crucial to customer-centric culture. If you're particularly in a position of ownership over your customer experience, or whether you're running a CX team or you've got that responsibility, building those relationships, and it takes time, but working to help them to understand why customer experience is important to them is crucial. And you can only do that by really knowing that part of the business, by making those connections, by enabling the information that you're sharing to actually resonate with them, as opposed to just being more data chucked onto a desk. So relationships is a huge part. But also going back to what I said around some of these initiatives, you need to get them off the ground. You need to start somewhere, and something like a cross-departmental customer journey mapping collaboration piece, I have seen that work across endless organizations, because it does naturally cross every part of the business. And whether it's by carrot or stick, eventually, if that part of the business isn't represented, it becomes very apparent. So yeah, bit of carrot, bit of stick, lots of ways of doing it, but ultimately it takes consistency and strong relationship building.
Cool, yeah. Kelton says thank you. Yeah. We got another question. What is the best? I'm sure this is, yeah. There's no good, no perfect answer to this, but what is the best first CX project you've seen in organizations that are just getting started with intentionally building a customer-centric culture? So probably like, what has been the best small win you've seen snowball into like building that culture?
Do you know, I'm going to bring Talk Mobile up as an example here. Talk Mobile, they're a pretty small team, actually, so they have the benefit of being a small team. I often think smaller teams and startups have the natural ability to be really customer focused, and it tends to be when we are growing and scaling, and everything has to be more rigorous in order to be able to support that growth and scale. That's where we tend to sometimes lose the ability to be as customer centric as we hope. And Talk Mobile are a small team, but one of the best things that I've seen a team do is start with the people. And what I mean by that is they have a reward and recognition scheme. And Stuart Wilson, the guy who is the director of Talk Mobile, he talks about how when they're rewarding and recognizing their staff, it isn't based on sales and hitting SLAs of fast call times and quick wrap up on back of calls. He talks about how they recognize their staff if they see that that customer feels like a person, an individual, and feels cared for. So they measure on happiness and they measure on customer outcomes. And doing that right from day one and maintaining it, and growing your processes and procedures around it, and as I mentioned at the beginning, making sure you're designing with the customer at heart, that is a massive win, because you are showing everybody how important customer experience is right from the very start, and that's what people are getting recognized and rewarded for.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, all about that recognition. I love the Timson's example, which kind of lent on that as well. It's this
Yeah.
EX helps CX, and yeah, I suppose I've got a question around that. There's probably a lot of people on this call that know that they need to build out this customer-centric culture, and the policies that Timson's has look really simple and straightforward because they are, but they really work really well. What would you recommend to anyone trying to go to like senior management to get buy-in for like change in policies and things like this?
Yeah, I mean it's brave, right? It feels like it's out of
Absolutely,
reach
yeah.
because of it's so ambitious. But this is it works. So I think if you're of that inclination where you want to try something different, it all comes to return on investment, doesn't it? When you're taking propositions into the boardroom, it all comes down to money. It just is the way it is. So I think start small. If this is something that is very different to your business, don't be afraid to be different, but start small and scale it up. So go in with that proposal and track it. Set yourself a 30, 60, 90-day sprint to get it implemented, get it up and running, track right from the beginning. There's that old saying that what isn't measured can't be seen. I've completely messed that up, but you know what I mean. You've got to track it in order to demonstrate it. So go in, start small, be brave, make sure you track it, and try and capture the unintentional benefits, because especially when it comes to customer experience and the improvements it makes. A lot of it, there's questions around correlation versus causation. Sometimes we cannot connect a direct impact, but we know that the customer experience is making a benefit. And it's the same with the employee experience stuff. Maybe from a monetary value, you might not be able to demonstrate as quickly the benefits as you hope, but look at everything else. Look at retention, look at staff productivity, look at efficiency, look at how happy they are coming into work every day and providing a better customer experience. So make sure you try and capture the things that aren't quite as obvious.
Perfect. That's great. Thank you. I don't think we've got any more questions, but Katie's details are on our last slide there, and I've also put a link to her LinkedIn in the chat. So make sure you go and follow her. She puts out good stuff all of the time, and you might see her at the Customer Experience Awards this year as well. But again, big thanks from me. I've got lots of notes here. So I've got lots of stuff out of this, and yeah, thank you very much, and have a lovely
Great.
rest of the
Thank you so
day.
much for having me. I will. Thank you. Great. It's been great.
No problem. For everyone else, I'll send around a recording of this as soon as possible, so you can circulate around colleagues, whatever you want to do. But yeah, thanks again for joining us on this dreary old morning. You're getting some thank yous in the chat there as well, Katie. And yeah, have a lovely weekend. See you all later.
Thanks all.